but you are really the one hybrid that I've seen that encapsulates all and really does it all, and is your really partner and sidekick in the journey, helping with board documents, which of course you find out quickly are not your resume that you already
Yeah.
perfected. It's something completely different. And just one of the things I benefited from so much was in the moment of need, that ability to have a half an hour with you, Sheila, because you really know exactly how these processes are going to go down, and you're raising to the top the most relevant issues to have in mind during the process is invaluable.
Well,
Yeah,
Wendy, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on air with me today and talking a little bit about your experiences with us. I really appreciate it. Uh,
absolutely, Sheila. It's my pleasure.
so you were just saying that someone had reached out to you. What was that conversation?
Yeah, I had because of my position as a director on boards, they were clearly looking to understand more about boardroom dynamics,
Mm.
how people get to the board, what the culture is like once you're on a board, and functionality, particularly in the area of nomination, finding board directors, how the board forms into a team, of a lot of issues surrounding that. And one of the things I mentioned was that I'm happy to speak with them, and I did for an hour and a half. And
Okay.
yes, but I said that they should definitely talk to Sheila Ronning because she is the absolute master of the art.
Oh, well, thank you. Love that. I hope, yeah, feel free to do an email introduction, right?
I
Would
will.
love to
I
connect
will.
with them and help them find some great board members. Which, by the way, reminds me, okay, so let's talk about like when you first came to us years ago, because you've been with us for a while.
A long time ago.
I know you were introduced to us by another member at the
Yes.
time. Um, and I think it was because of one of the board openings that we had gotten in. Was that
Yes, it
correct?
was.
And you
One
were
of the
interested in that
great.
particular opening.
Yes.
So let's kind of talk about your journey with us. Obviously, it's starting out a little bit backwards, right? Because there was actually an opportunity, and instead of like a lot of times people will come to us and they'll want certain things like us to help them with their personal branding or their networking, right? And your story is just a little bit different, which I think is great. So why don't we just talk about your story?
Sure. I think my story with women in the boardroom has been different every step of the way. And it's good to know that there are many paths and that women in the boardroom can help with so many aspects of a woman's journey to the board or simply professionally. I was at the point of my career when I came to Women in the Boardroom, where prior to knowing about Women in the Boardroom, I was already thinking about chapter 3. What's going to be next for me
Mhm.
after 30 years plus in corporate marketing, in my case, in the CMO path, and what was I going to do thereafter? And I was increasingly becoming more interested in the systemic organization, the whole organization, versus just the silo in which I was operating in food and beverage and hospitality in my case. And I started to speak with women, associates and friends who had just begun at that point in our journeys to sit on boards and to act in that way, in that capacity for boards. And so I had been speaking with a woman who was a member of Women in the Boardroom, and she was telling me about her board work as well as the organization. And that was really the first I'd heard of it. And a few days later, literally, she forwarded me a query from Women in the Boardroom for the Newport Restaurant Group, on whose board I sit now after a circuitous route to the board, um, that they were looking for a board director. And it was one of your short and concise, blind as to who it was, queries that explained what the need the board has. And she wrote simply to me, "If this isn't you, I don't know who it is." And it was the search for a board director with hospitality and independent restaurant experience who lived in the Northeast with marketing skills and practically said shoulder length black hair. It was so me. And so
Yeah.
I joined Women in the Boardroom, which was a natural evolution of my path to the boardroom for this exact query to be able to respond to it and learn simultaneously about the host of assistance and opportunity that Women in the Boardroom provides. And that reaction to that query on my part led to a almost 6-year journey to that board, because when I went through the process, which you had all coached me could take could take 9 up to 9 months even to eventually get to the board seat if you are successful in the process, actually led me at the end of 9 months, which it did take, to being. So I was at the very last minute of these steps of interviews, which involved the chief, the CEO, the chairwoman of the board, the nominating committee, all the hoops you jump through to get to the board. This, at the very last minute, it was a kind of we love you so much. We just don't want you only on our board. We want you to be our outsourced chief marketing officer. We have needs there, which I had identified in my research that there was voids. And then I was hired. And I took that opportunity and worked in that capacity, setting strategic direction for the whole institution, helping guide the marketing department with best practices in marketing and hospitality, and doing that for 5 years. In
Right.
2023, I was nominated to the board eventually, which wasn't necessarily promised as an outcome. It wasn't said to me, oh, if you do
Mhm.
a great job, we're going to nominate you to the board. But it did happen. And now I'm a board member on the audit committee.
I know,
And
and that's amazing. And so, Wendy, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to point out that so really, like in working with us, we're all about making connections. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, well, how many women do you place per year? How many people are you placing per year?" And I'm like, "Well, we're not a search firm. We're not. That's not our role. But we're making connections. We're helping our members with their branding. We're helping them with their networking, which of course that is all part of, right? I happen to know the woman who was the chair of that board who
yes,
came to us, and it turned out that it was just a better fit for you to be hired as an executive there at the time. And years later, they're like, "We love you so much and you're so fantastic. We now want you to put you on the board." So it
thank you.
definitely was a longer journey than just getting onto the board right away, but it was still a good journey. And
It
it's
was a
just
great
based on
journey.
all of those connections that we help with, right? And then
Yes,
just there was just another one a few years ago, kind of another, it's just a unique situation, right? Everybody's path is not the same, but you need that groundwork, that base work in order to really, you know, help get you those connections and in front of people, right?
absolutely. Yes, the second time around with Women in the Boardroom, um, I was approached in this case by an activist investor who was looking to unlock shareholder value through board refreshment, which is what they sometimes do if they're that sort of activist.
Right.
And
Yep.
they had there had been a query through Women in the Boardroom, meaning an email that I received, and that said this board and your normal summary of 3 sentences that are very acute and summarizing. And it was in that case in the bottled water industry. And I responded. And again, it was a love. And that one, as opposed to taking 9 months, was immediate. They wanted to talk to me immediately, and it moved very
Yeah.
quickly, as investment bankers do. And again, we got through the process, and they were like, "You are terrific. We love you. we're not going to put you on this one because we think this may go to a proxy fight and we need this kind of this, but we'd like to be back in touch with you. And although I was disappointed, I was happy with the connection that was made. And I noted down, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to follow up with them in X number of months. And before I could do that, they reached out again to me and had another opportunity for a public board in the food and beverage distribution industry. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a company actually that I had identified myself in one of the workshopping actions that Women in
Yeah.
the Boardroom advises you to formulate what are the boards who you'd be perfect for. And at the top of my list wasn't this company, coincidentally. So when it came round to me um, as a natural from the marketplace, it was a perfect fit and worth waiting for. And that was within the year of that first outreach from that company. And that process happened so quickly. The first outreach from the activists was in December, and by March, I was on the board. And that's a public company. And so the former was a private company. So now I'm on a public company and a private company. And Women in the Boardroom, through your webinars and training seminars and in-person meetups, really, really surfaces the relevant issues for both of those types of organizations.
Mhm.
So I knew what was going to come at me. I knew what the relevant issues would be, and I was prepared. I think that Women in the Boardroom helps, as I always explain it to other people, because I send so many people your way. A happy customer, a happy part of the network here. So um, the three ways are really the education that you provide for women who are seeking their place at the table, as you say, the connectivity to experts and corporate seekers of board members, and then the networking among the other professionals who are within the Women in the Boardroom family. And so there is a number of ways, and that's unique. There are search firms that do what they do, there are educational organizations that do what they do, but you are really the one hybrid that I've seen that encapsulates all and really does it all, and is your really partner and sidekick in the journey, helping with board documents, which of course you find out quickly are not your resume that you already
Yeah.
perfected. It's something completely different. And just one of the things I benefited from so much was in the moment of need, that ability to have a half an hour with you, Sheila, because you really know exactly how these processes are going to go down, and you're raising to the top the most relevant issues to have in mind during the process.
Well, awesome. Thank you for that. That's a great story. And I feel like it's so important. I always tell members, I'm like, listen, even though we're not a search firm, we get in those board openings. It's great, but don't join just for the board openings, because it's highly unlikely that you're going to actually land one of those seats. Although I'm talking to somebody who, got two of them, right? So that's
Yes,
fantastic. But I feel like it's so important to still apply for those. And even if you don't get it, you don't know who's looking at your board bio. You don't know I mean, even if Bob is on that board and they've decided we're not going to select Wendy, Bob might be on the ABC board as well.
yes,
And he's like, Wendy'd be great over here. So it might be a process, right? A longer process than you'd want it to, but you can't just like join an organization and slap down your credit card and expect to get onto a board. You've got to do
yes,
the work. And you are proof of that because you did the work. You had those great conversations. You and I were talking about, should you take that consulting gig,
yes,
or hold up for the board seat? And I'm like, take it, because then they're going to really be able to see how fantastic you are.
yes. And with regard to that board opportunity at this moment in time, as I look back, I wouldn't have it any other way. I
Yeah.
really loved those 5 years. And now that I'm a board member, I know everything about that company, and I know where the secret talents are buried, where the opportunities may be. I know the history, and many of the board members have said to me, "We are so glad you're here because you know
Yeah.
really everything." And so
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Um, Yes, it's an organization that you join not for one thing, but for many things. Board opportunities for sure. And I think maybe you sort of played down the placement eventuality,
Hmm.
but I've met many members of Women in the Boardroom who are now on boards, and we keep in touch and sort of explore and share our experiences and help each other out. And did you know about this and this resource and so forth? So I feel like many of your
Hmm.
members are ending up on boards. It was the singular engine for me. I wasn't like I was
Yes.
working it in five other ways. I kind of said, this is my partner, and I'm going to do everything they say and rely on their expertise. All of the webinars I attend, the live webinars, viewed so many of the archived webinars while I was in the process. This is now 7 years ago. Um, and even more recently when it was a new kind of board that I was looking at, a new and different type of process. So all the information is there, whether live or archived. And it's really about, and I think you say this, how much time you have to dedicate to the various steps that you recommend, and working that spreadsheet and those contact lists that you make available. And
Hmm.
it's really a framework. Women in the
Hmm.
Boardroom is a framework to follow for realizing your board journey to success.
It is. Thank you for saying that. And you know what? You're right. I probably do downplay the board openings and how many members get onto those through, the opportunities that we send out. However, I'm all about, I guess, underselling and over delivering, you know?
Smart, very
Yeah.
smart. Yes.
So, yes. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for being here with us today. I really appreciate your sharing your story about us, and um, I let's get you on another board.
Yeah, if there's time, even. I mean, that's the next
Exactly.
question to
Right.
discuss. What is the optimal number of boards to be on before overboarding um,
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm here
kicks
to help
in?
you figure that out. Right.
Right.
So,
I know you are. I know you
all
are, which I very
right.
much
Perfect.
appreciate.
Thank you. I'm gonna hit the stop.